members of the human family. Today is the 8th of July 2024. Welcome to the General Durability Podcast. I am Othmane Wagdi in Mohammedia, Morocco, and my guest is Madam Nicole Bastien. She is from Germany and she is an entrepreneur advocating for humanity in the economy, and she is with us today to help us in our quest for knowledge, ultimately self-knowledge. Welcome, Nicole. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me, and it's a pleasure being here with you and all of that. And I'm very excited, really thrilled to see what we're surfacing. And yeah, I'm doing really good today. Beautiful morning.
Great, great. How is the weather doing?
Well, it's actually overcast in Munich right now and a little
Yeah,
rainy, so but it's going to be nice today. Fine.
not winter day.
No. Even though it's a little cooler, but tomorrow we expect higher temperatures, so it's summer.
Okay, it will be better. Uh,
Yeah.
Okay, please, Nicole, take a bit of time and tell us a little bit about yourself, your person, and how it came to be that you advocate for humanity in the economy.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm a little older than you, so I could tell really a lot of stories about it, how it came to this point. And I mean, we already covered a little bit of that. I'm located in Munich, and I'm German by birth, but I do see myself more as a global citizen. I'm married to an American, so I don't really relate to the concept of nation and nationality. And it's more something for me, what I feel and how I feel in my heart. And I feel connected with so many people, diverse people wide. And I realized I really like the idea of global connection. So that's why I refer to myself as a global citizen more. And my background is in social science. I studied social affairs and social work back in the 90s. So it's really quite some time. And I also studied organizational development later on and got my MBA in that. And I worked as a social worker for people on probation and families in difficult social situations. So also with disabled people, I would say I saw a lot as a social worker in the field of what actually is it being at the fringes of a society. And I also worked as a lobbyist for the Bavarian industry and as a CEO of a company, and that I did for the longest time. So I really learned what it means making profit and all of that, and
Yes.
dealing with different shareholders and stakeholders, and yeah, and really try to make it successfully with a company and at the market. So and then after 20 something years being corporate, I decided being self-employed because I really wanted to know what it feels like throwing my entire energy in this world and really bringing in my talents in the economy. And this is how I started my business, being an advisor for people. They are very forward thinking. They're mostly entrepreneurs and investors and leaders, and helping them turning their vision into impact. So that is what I'm doing in the advisory. But you also asked me what actually brought me to this idea of humanity in the economy,
Yes, yes.
and that, of course, I will answer too. It started to grow when I was corporate back in the 2000s. I took over the company as a CEO in 2002, and I did the established business approaches and followed that. So means profit is the thing to go, and realizing you do need people and you do need a different approach to really get to this point, to really make it successfully with the company. And this is over the years how I developed this idea of people before numbers,
Yes.
realizing you
Yeah.
do need a good relationship, you do need a very good communication with your people in the organization. You have to treat them as adults, as human beings, as people that bring in so much more than just their labor force and their ability yeah, do their job. So they're human beings, and treating them as human beings is the best way to create positive relationships. But back then, it was also an approach that was not really common. So people usually looked at me like, but Nicole, that's not the way how business works, you know? And I was like, yeah, I get it. But just because everyone does it in the ways of that is the law, that is the profit, that's the growth we want to see, does not mean there couldn't be a different one. So, and then I started to implement, let's say, a human-centered idea and approach of leadership. And then when I got self-employed, I was branching out and really trying to find my people. Had to build up an entire new network. I couldn't really take the old network with me. And this is how I got into the world of regenerative economy. So I found my
Yes.
tribe, I found my people. I felt so much home, and really, I still do. And then over time, realizing that it is focusing a lot on environmental initiatives and innovation, and treating economy still as something that is not connected with us humans, as something as a third entity that is, I don't know, just miraculously appearing overnight, and it was just there. So we refer to economy as an it is out there, and saying someone has to fix it, that things get better, that we are having better businesses, and won't harm environment and so on. And so I asked them and really hold this flag, says, yeah, but it's us humans who are creating the economy and creating businesses. And from the businesses itself, economy arises. So this is what came back to the idea of I have to really hold space for this idea of humanity in the economy, not only as an understanding that we are the creators of economy, also that with holding that and bringing that in a business approach, the idea of humanity, and I'm pretty sure we will talk about that later in our
Yeah.
conversation.
We'll go
That
very
is
deep into
what
that.
it means. What is it? Sorry.
We will go deep into it.
Yes.
I'm very interested in details about it. So, okay, I made here notes. So from social work to corporate into self-employed, that's quite interesting because social. Let's define economy. Economy is it's about exchange between individuals and between a group of human beings. So it is uh, uh, the origin of the economy. It's about the humanity actually, but it's kind of has developed into what we know today. It's about numbers. It's about profit. And not only numbers, it's about very specific number. We have reduced the economy onto monetary policy and monetary gains, and that's the mistake I think that. What do you think about that? Is that this process of reduction from because when we are exchanging, there is a lot of things we do. There is emotional exchange. There is gratitude. There is I will gain. I will not gain much in terms of money, but I will gain, for example, a little bit of emotions that I have done good, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. Beautifully put, really. It's exactly that. So it's also my understanding of economy as a collective expression of exchanging values.
Yeah.
So to give like a quick definition, if that is possible. And if you look at the economy in that way, it says, okay, it's values. That is based on values, whatever values means. And values also very strongly bond to identity.
Yeah.
And so pretty much everything that's there is an economic act, to speak so. And it changed in the times when the Newtonian worldview took over. So in the ways of we can measure, we can forecast developments, we can treat certain social aspects, and economy is a social expression. as we just said, like the collective expression of values that we have, and of exchanging values, I want to say. And with the time that we started to see those things as machine, businesses and economy, and as I said, measure and growth and profit and efficiency and everything, that was the time when it all changed. You know, when we tried to put so much more effort in the idea of how can we create the business more as a machine. This is how, when we started implementing more power, we as humans, you know, as humanity, and totally, when we started to implement power structures, when we started to implement status symbols to create a differentiator in those organizations, to really see who is part of what circle, who has access to what more resources, to make it more desirable for some people to really get to this point. So it means that is the hierarchical structure we're talking about here. And and then also allowing us that banks were holding money and not having that circulated anymore, so hogging that. And that is when it really flipped, and when a few got rich very fast and many were not benefit from economy anymore.
Yes, you have mentioned Newton. I have, my background is in mechanical engineering and civil
Yes.
engineering, so you kind of poked the bear here. I, I, because in that time we have capitalism is born, and capitalism is actually not a bad idea. It is not a bad idea to reduce or to quantify the exchange between groups of human beings. Or, for example, we have a farm. There is many people work there. A group of human beings in BMW, for example, as a company, and to reduce that to measurable instruments, that's actually very smart to do that. It's good to do that, but anything depends on the dose. We have radicalized that to include everything, even medicine, even all sorts of food, even water, energy. So the dose makes the poison. So there is a saying like that. So it's not about just the reduction, but the inclusion of everything into this reduction measurement. That's where I see the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to offer a little wordplay with capitalism. So there's capital in this word. And the point is, and that what I see as the biggest issue, is that we reduce capital to money only. We think capital equals money and money equals capital, which is just not true. So we do know at least 8 more different forms of capital. And again, so I know 9, I don't know, maybe you know more. And money is just one. But in the way we are seeing the established economy is that we think capital is only and equals only money. And that is the reductionism that really brings a lot of issues, because this is the worshipping of the money. And how can we make more out of that? And it really got a sick amount of attention, this money. So, but for that an economy works, you need so much more, and a business works, you need so much more attention on capital or on different forms of capital than money only. And let me just mention a few of that. So we know the human capital, the social capital. We do know cultural and experiential capital. And especially the experiential capital gets so much valued when you get in an environment or in situation you haven't been before. You're looking for an expert, someone who brings in this experience, the lived experience. And we are in this time of humanity that we have to look for people. They are a little step ahead. It doesn't have to be miles ahead, but at least one step ahead. So they have to have this experience. So we know, as I said, the financial, it's also the material and intellectual capital. And of course, we know the ecological capital, and we also know the spiritual capital. And spiritual capital, for example, is something that doesn't really take place in economy. However, when you go into different areas and you want to establish, let's say you want to branch out and you want to build a new company, a firm or whatever in an area, let's say Morocco, and I don't know about your cultural background and spiritual background, that could be very difficult for me to start to relate to people and
Yes,
build
definitely. Yeah.
relationships and networks, right? And that is one of the foundations of being in business anyway.
Yes. One should, before I comment on, you have mentioned now capital, this kind of way you have described this is very interesting to me. Uh, I didn't know that. I always, when I think about capital, I think about financial capital, so the human capital, but not beyond that. But as the name of the podcast say, General Durability Podcast, I have it came because of a hypothesis that I'm developing, and I call it the general durability hypothesis. So it's an alternative to sustainability, because I do think that sustainability is kind of stagnation. We want to sustain this system to keep it ongoing, but we don't want to think really, I will not say radically, but fundamentally. Like we know the system is broken. We know since 2008, 2007, 2008, the monetary system is 100% broken. So we are living in a there need to a new system to be born, and a sort it has to be. It's not a matter someone will decide. The system is already, it's like a house, and the fundament is broken. So and there is a big uh, I do split it in like a matrix into 9 dimensions. The first one is the first three are about us human beings. It's like leadership quality. The second one, physical health quality. The third one, psychological health quality. And then you go environmental quality, economical quality, socio-cultural quality, and then technique. The last three are process quality, technical quality, and site quality, meaning location quality. And then I start to play with them. It's at the beginning. You can read about it in my website. Actually it needs a few hours to read, but it's kind of very interesting idea to see things at broad, like from a generalistic perspective. I cannot. Why I'm saying that, because maybe you have encountered this term, economical externalities. For example, in agriculture, it is easier to come and spray pesticides and herbicides on the land without, and then getting a crop, GMO crop there, and it grows so quickly and gives so much, but the quality of the food is bad. It creates problems in the gut microbiome in human beings, which gonna lead into physical health problems, which gonna lead to psychological problems later on. Uh, when the rain comes, it's gonna rain on this land. The runoff is gonna go to the river. It's gonna intoxicate the fish. It's gonna go to the ocean. It's gonna intoxicate the plankton. And so, uh, although if when we reduce the economy on reduce it to profit, like you have said before, and money, so it's good to do that. Okay, it's not gonna cost us much. We just spray this and plant this crop. It's gonna grow. We're gonna sell it. but we didn't calculate all the other ones. So we have externalized this to humanity and to the environment. Yeah. It's actually unethical to do that. And it is at a large scale at the moment. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, sustainable is not enough. That I agree on too. That's why I'm also very intrigued in the idea of regenerative business practices and economy, which is not only aiming for sustainable and financial sustainable businesses and economy, also renewing and rebuilding and restoring what is broken and bringing back a really functional and healthy environment and systems. So with everything we do in business, we're serving life, the idea of
Yeah.
life. So how can we unfold the best energy in a community in this business here, and which impact do we create positively create in our communities we are embedded in? So that to be said. And I want to go back to this idea of when I was listening. So the idea of, okay, we have a business and we're focusing on money and profit only. And focusing on profit, there is nothing wrong about it. As you said earlier, capitalism itself is not bad. It's not a wrong idea. Definitely not. It is more how we bring it into action, how we fill it
Yeah.
with life. And that comes from an approach and a different approach of thinking, and I would also say of something I feel in my heart, and from there of decision making. So it's like always just a decision away. Do I create a business that is in an extractive way with what I'm
Yeah.
doing, or do I want to create a business that is creating benefits and positive impact, not only for my business and the people I involve in everything, that all the stakeholders they're involved, but also the broader idea of community. And I'm sitting in here, and you mentioned so many nice things like social systems and healthcare system. How can I create a business that somehow has an effect on those levels too? In what way? So that depends on the business and where it is sitting in all of that. And so let's go back in the idea of extractive business. And
Yeah.
that can only come if you think you're alone there. That is just your unique business. You are, as we say, the unicorn, not only with the billion you're worth. I'm really like, the unicorn, like people talk about, but no one really has seen one yet.
Yeah.
And then you are somehow existing. And if you think that you're the only one and there is no one else out there, and it's just about you and just about your own things and just about your own numbers and your own growth, then yes, you do not think further than actually the next Excel spreadsheet and
Yeah.
the next, general meeting that you have with your shareholders. But if you understand that every little thing on this planet is connected, and we live on a planet of interconnectedness, then you start thinking differently. And I just want to make this example from your experience or your background. Where would you really say that building a house is where is the edge of building a house? So where can really say this idea and system of I build a house is really ended? So does it end with the plan you create? Does it end with you have the keys and give it to the owners? Or does it end 5 years later because the house is also, still working and the
Yeah.
materials are still working? Does it end with the next renovation you have to bring in? And does it end with the people they are like, bringing the concrete or whatever you use as material, the wood or so? And does it end with their families? You know what I'm saying, right? It
Yeah.
is really so much bigger than we actually perceive in the first moment. And when we see economy and businesses and the way that they are interconnected, then
Yeah.
again we start making different decisions.
Yes, our comments on that. So great. I love practical examples rather than abstract. I I'm I'm normally I do I do give people a chance, you know, and I have listened to the what people call them the bad actors out there. So the most bad actors in the world. So I give them a chance, try to listen to them, and it's very difficult to understand their arguments. I'm really neutral. I come at it from I'm curious. Hey, why? And there is no solid beyond narcissism and self-serving and the feeling of moral superiority from many individuals. I would like to comment on that example you have made. I do think that's from individual or from group to group, it's different. So, for example, for me and you, people who are thinking about regeneration, or for me, I do talk about generation. Not why regeneration? Regeneration what? Into what? Coming to the past? I don't think it's gonna happen. We are going to need something new. Uh, we could use old values, we could use scripture, we could use science, we could use everything that we have up to now, but we need a new combination of things, new hypotheses, new theories, new and it's a new world emerging. So what I'm also in the movement of regeneration, but that's a critic, self-critic. uh, we have to not look at it like we are going to go to the past, because what was before capitalism? There was feudalism, which is orders of magnitude worse than capitalism. And capitalism was working in the US and parts of Europe, but especially in the US until 100 years ago, was working fantastically, and it started to degenerate. And what should my political teacher, Mr. Ron Paul, calls it crony capitalism, what we are living through at the moment. So probably we have to regenerate first of all into capitalism, and then think our way, innovate our ways out of it, or develop it further. Yeah. What do you think
Yes,
about my perspective?
yes. It's a rich perspective because you really bring so many different ways in like a little buffet, right? You know, there are also those little things we can just enjoy each little bit of it.
Yeah.
So let me just no, it's beautiful. Let me bring let me bring one thing that came to my mind right away, and you said like regeneration and generation, and not growing into something that we already know. So growing, kind of decrease, not increase. So
Yes.
decrease, like recessing into something that was already there, and a lower state of frequency, to say so, and a lower state of
Yeah.
evolution. I don't think that is possible, because I do think we're also looking back collectively on, as we said, this experiential capital, and also the spiritual capital, which means, and cultural capital, which means that even though I didn't live in the 40s, so 1940 something, I do have some sense of what it means for Germany carrying that baggage, you know, from that time.
Yeah.
And so, and we developed a collective awareness in certain ways. We might not be there might be some potential for create more communication, better communication with the people in Germany, to really, like, you know, make the next evolutionary step from what we learned, and in our democracy. But I do think all that prevents us from really falling back into like the dark ages. So, but I want to bring back, why is it so important talking to that, what you just said? It is, for me, a part of humanity in the economy, having a long-term vision. And this long-term vision has to include in what future do we want to live? And that can only be a future that secures the survival of our species, and that includes also the survival of our environments we are embedded in, and bringing everything that comes with that. So biodiversity, just to mention one of that, clean air, all the issues, they are, part of the climate change on top. So it's so much more, but you do need to have a long-term vision, and that you cannot, if you have the idea of, I said unicorn earlier, you can also call it like the Highlander syndrome. There can only be one in that. If you're really thinking you are the only business that does well, and you see everyone as competitor and not as co-creator of the environment, then it's going to be difficult. If you have this worldview, you won't be able to really develop a healthy and life-serving long-term vision into that. So that is one thing for me. And another part that comes with that is also part of humanity in the economy. That is the entire social responsibility we have to bring in. And that is so much more than just have a budget for corporate social responsibility. It is really genuinely caring for the community I'm embedded in and knowing what is going on. We had earlier the idea of, or said, social systems and healthcare systems. So for example, if I am in a company, support human extractive structures, like I don't really care about labor law, just say, and really create a high level of stress, and telling them either you're doing it or you're out, and knowing and playing with their fear of extension. So really, like, like making a living and playing with this fear, then I create a toxic work environment, which has an effect on the health, mental and physical health of the people. And I do that by design. And I just take as granted that we do have a healthcare system that would take care. So I externalize the costs, as you just mentioned earlier. You asked for the externalities, and that would be some of that. So if I take social responsibility in my own company, and also who I am as a business, who I am as a business leader, who my people are, and really trying to bring in my experiential, not experiential, my it's experiential capital into the community and back into the community, and help my community to evolve, then it's a total different situation. And many companies do that, at least once a year. I do also know about a lot of tech companies, and you wouldn't think about them, I wouldn't call them regenerative, but I know they also grant a few amount of days for their workers, employees, that they can work in social businesses, support social community, supports the community work and everything. So they really support that, and they just free them for that day and give them a day off, because they're doing that, because they value that, and also because they know they as a company are built by people and made of people, and they do need those people and the employees to really create a positive impact in the environment they're sitting in. And that has an effect also on education and on the educational level people coming in, and also the social level that they are able to really to provide. So just to give those examples, there's so much more to humanity and economy, but we don't want to mention everything, because we want to keep the conversation running here.
Yeah, great. Okay, lots of ideas came to my mind while you were talking, but you have mentioned something about the 1940s in Germany, and I think the German population needs to grow a backbone. It's urgently, because I lived 7 years. I know the topic very good. Most of my friends were German, so it's kind of the German population didn't process what happened in that period very well. So it's a social work is needed to be done there. So because I was always, I said to my friends, you was not there, you were not there, you done nothing, so it's not your problem. And something has developed also in Germany. It's an anti-nationalism, and I found that highly unattractive because as a foreigner, I did live in many countries. So I lived mainly in Morocco and Germany, smaller bit in Denmark. As one who liked the country, because when I think about Germany, I think also about the 1700, about the 1800. I think also about how they constructed the rivers, and that's much more than the 12 years of what happened in the late 1930s and 1940s. So Germany is much bigger thing than just 12 years. So I will not reduce that, but unconsciously most German do reduce, or it has an effect on their thinking. So as a recommendation from someone who is familiar with that, there need to be a psychological, social cultural revolution within Germany, so to propel Germany forward, because the country need that, a sense of a heimat, of home, of to be proud of something, to be not in a negative way, of belonging. So it's mine. I would like to do something for it, not just I will extract what I need to survive or to live. Or that's yeah, that's kind of my recommendation. I will go to a topic that I would like to share with you. I do think it is important for the future. Is a concept by Nassim Taleb. Maybe you know of him. He's a Lebanese American economist, and many talk about resilience. Resilience, and he comes and say resilience is not what we should aim for. Is anti-fragility what should we aim for? Like fragile, something is fragile, like a glass of wine, for example. If it falls, it breaks directly. Something resilient. It's when it hits, it survives, but it does not get better. It just survives. Uh, Probably a little bit weaker than before. That's a resilient, but anti-fragile are systems that, when they are hit or encounter stress or crisis or something like this, they do not only survive, but they get stronger. So I do think that the economy of the future, like our systems of the future, should be anti-fragile, meaning we should think about risks in a positive sense. Okay, when risks are coming and crisis and obstacles, how could we create systems that grow by facing obstacles? And we human beings, for example, we are naturally anti-fragile. So, yeah. What do you think about that in terms of the economy?
Yeah, I want to go back to the terms you offered, anti-fragile and resilient. And I might have a different understanding of resilience, more what you defined with anti-fragility. And so to me, resilience means you facing stress and a crisis. You go through a period of, let's say, a tremendous crisis, and also kind of period of catharsis. That is part of going through a crisis. That would be the point of resetting and learning and integrating what you learned through your crisis. And you get out of the crisis in a further developed and evolved
Yeah.
version. So that is resilience. And resilience means to me that in the next crisis, you are able to handle a similar or any crisis less fragile. You won't crumble that much anymore.
Yeah.
That is resilience to me. And as humans, the entire human development, entire evolution on this planet is built on this idea of resilience, of learning from crisis, providing the learning, the experiences you had to the community. So, or in nature's speech, it would be the ecosystem, that this ecosystem can build up new mechanisms, also sometimes bring in new species. They haven't lived there before.
Yes, yeah.
And it could be plants, could also be animals, or like can also be extinct, that some is not needed anymore in certain ways. So for us, extinction could also be a certain behavior, that we do not bring in a dysfunctional behavior anymore in our own life, because we realize if I do that, if I'm an asshole to everyone, of course I won't receive nice feedback, and then I might go in a crisis, don't have friends anymore, and then realize, it might be better I just leave that. I create a different approach, and then I try something new. And that is an act of building up resilience in that. So what could that mean in economy? And one issue I see really, really heavily is that also coming back in regenerative economy, the question of what makes you so unique as business? What makes your idea so unique? And then sometimes but someone else on this planet already has this idea. It has to be innovative. Yes and no. And no, because if any business is the only business, what would happen if the business owner decides, I'm going to close my business? And this very important, unique, innovative business is vanished overnight. It would create quite a hole in this entire thing. So we should rather ask, how can your business contribute to the resilience and the redundance? Because for resilience, you need redundance. You need to do the things again and again and again. And there cannot only be one. You have to have a fallback, whatever it is. For example, someone else who has the ability to really help you out at the moment you can, or step in, in the moment you cannot do and stuff. And having this in a business and in an economy, that would really bring in, or would create a better condition and capacity for building resilience. And part of resilience is also that you grant yourself time to reflect on what happened, on the learning. It's not enough to have this experience. The experience would just be the experience. To really evolve, you need to integrate the learning. And for that, you have to reflect on that. And then you need, for the next steps, and they're going to be quite, they're not going to be very strong steps. They're very cautious. They're very sometimes a bit insecure, the next step after a crisis, because it's new land. You haven't really done the step in your new identity or in the new way. So you just have to make a new experience. But you need to have a certain time of that also, let's say gardens and guards and sometimes other, I wouldn't say like social security networks, but kind of networks around you. They just help you to make the next steps and integrate the learning. And for a business, that could be coaching, that could be mentoring, then can also be business networks, that can also be a different way of communication within the organization, like more a network kind of created style, to integrate the different aspects of learning in a better way. And that would build a better resilience in the business. If the business is better resilient, that could bring back this learning into the community. That would also increase the resilience of the community.
Okay, talking about resilience, one of the topics I wanted to ask you and discuss with you is the concept of effectuation instead of causation. For example, I myself, I'm following effectuation since 2022. Since 22 years, about 2 years now. and it is not the easiest thing to do, to be honest, but it makes sense, and I do think for especially if when you are an entrepreneur searching in a new field, creating new hypothesis, and the business model is unproven, so it's not like you have copied it from another country. For example, most businesses in Morocco are just copied. This
Mm.
the negligible innovation. Almost everywhere I see something, it's copied from France, from Germany, from Spain, from somewhere else. So, but there are people who have new ideas and want to explore them, and they have the psychological energy for this. Most people don't have energy for this. So one should be aware that is gonna cost you a lot of mental energy, and I do think that effectuation is suitable, for example, for innovators. What do you think about it? For whom is is good effectuation, and for whom is probably good causation?
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I'm a big fan of effectuation too, and I don't know when I actually came across this concept. It's a bit longer, and I was really intrigued what Sarah Saraswati did with her research on that. And I don't know, we might have to explain a little bit what effectuation is,
Yes,
a
yes,
way
yes.
of this decision making, of thinking and decision making in entrepreneurship. And Sarah Saraswati was doing research on serial entrepreneurs and looking what is it actually that makes them successful. And she figured there are different patterns. They are just occurring in all the cases and businesses she was looking into. And one is definitely that they start in the way of the means. So, I mean, what is really there? What is it? Who am I? What access do I have? What resources do I have right now? And what I'm capable to create out of that. So that is, I find one of this is like the opportunity thing. Like what is there right now and what can I create with what is available to me
Yeah.
in the moment. So that is one pattern that she realized. The other one is the thinking in affordable losses. So not all business goes just successfully, and even the ones they succeed, they also go through periods of learning, as we just had, and pointed out in resilience that creating this resilience is an act of learning and an evolutionary development act. And this is the question of affordable losses, is that you take in consideration that the idea might not go as straight as you thought
Yeah.
in the execution. So what is it that you can afford to lose? It could be
Yes,
money, it could
yes.
be
Yeah.
reputation, could be network, could be whatever it is. So what are you able to really lose? And it's also a very, and then the other pattern she figured is co-creational in terms of partnerships and also in terms of business development. So partnerships also means you're bringing in diverse people. They actually accomplish you as a business person, and you would not hire someone who is is your twin in that ways. And the other thing is, and the last one she saw is that you turn the unexpected in something profitable, means that is for me the absolute invitation of life to an entrepreneur. You can see a challenge as shit,
Yeah.
right? In the ways of how could that happen to me? Or you really see it as an undertaker does, as an opportunity and a calling to bring in your talents and really be creative and create something out of the situation, which again is for me the purest definition of entrepreneurship, the creational part. And so that is the effectuation in just a few words. And if we hold that in our mind and really going, what is there right now? What is possible with where the business is and the resources I have and the network I have, then again, we would not look at the business in the way this is just the only thing. You know, we understand there's interconnectedness. We understand it needs networks, it needs partnerships, it needs so much more. then and governance, of course, and it needs so much more than just profit in the way. So it points in the direction of a different understanding of capital, where we started our conversation today. And the other concept you mentioned is in the ways of cause and effect, and that is the oldest understanding of pretty much each management approach we still have. And we treat people in the cause and effect way in companies, in most of them, like, I want you to do this, and then you have to do exactly that. I say
Yes.
this and I expect you to do this. And then the most unlikely, quote unquote, unlikely thing happens. People create differently, not in the way. Sometimes for the positive, we call it innovation. And sometimes for the negative, we would call it friction. And for
Yes.
that, we created ideas and frameworks to reduce the friction within this well-oiled machine. And we call it change management, we call it agile work approach, we call it the next fancy schmancy leadership, whatever framework and tool. This is all created to reduce friction in those ways. And a lot of friction would actually be just solved if we started communicating differently in that ways. So what do you think about that when you hear that?
Yes, you have said a lot of good things, and because I how can I say this? I am in the arena, so I kind of understand exactly what you are talking about. Kind of relate to you were talking. I'm imagining situations in my own experience. So, but one idea I noticed that made the note here. Uh, it's about skills and challenges. Those
Yeah.
need to be balanced, and that's was Shiksan Mihali is a highly competent individual. He passed away. Uh, May he rest in peace. And he is the creator or the godfather of flow psychology, and it's kind of flow psychology is kind of it's good complementation to effectuation. It's it's kind of you need to go in the flow. For example, when you are facing a challenge and you have to look to your skills. I'm talking about my own experience, what I have learned from out of it. And sometimes I just need to give up because I see the challenge is so big, my skills are not that good, so I will go back and I'm coming in a year. So I'm gonna prepare my skills and I'm gonna come back. So sometimes, uh, but I can afford that because I'm still young and experimenting. But enterprises could do that differently by assessment of skills of their workers, knowing their workers, knowing the human being they are employing, not just a number, and knowing the qualities very good. So you can create a flow within the company. That could be really great because a lot of people, when they are talking about their jobs, they are unsatisfied. And they say my boss, and they talk bad about their employers. Uh, that's and which creates a mental health problem and in those individuals and influence their families and yes, influence the society as a whole. So I do think that that flow is very important. And coming back to effectuation, I'm convinced that electuation is the way forward for many, if not most innovators. For innovation, for new things coming to the world, it would be better to use uh, what I have, where I am, when I am, and what I own. So to start with those, what is, not what could be. So to start with what is, to experiment and see the reaction of the world. If the world is interested, then you can look up for partners. And
Let me
yeah,
add some
yeah,
words, please, to that.
go.
Well, the way I work with my people in my advisory and the fine advisory, helping them to turn their vision into an impact, is you do need to have a vision of where you want to go. And that needs, each entrepreneur needs that. An entrepreneur has to know, what is it that I really want to create? Not only what I have, also where is it that I want to go? You have to have a feeling and an
Yes,
understanding of
yeah,
your future and how you envision the future of your business and also the environment you're embedding in. Each entrepreneur is, in the one way or the other, an impact creator. By the way we're creating businesses and showing up in this world, by each human being is an impact creator, right? But we're focusing on entrepreneurs here today. So with the businesses we create, we also create some impact. And yes, that is right. You need to know what is given to me in the moment. What is it that I own and possess? What is it that I can activate as resources in my network? And we talked about that in the ideas of effectuation. And what would help me to make the next step closer to turn my vision into an impact? And what I realized in my work, a lot of those vision-driven and forward-thinking entrepreneurs and investors, they get frustrated because they have and hold this vision of the future of the impact they want to create, and then they don't really see the pockets of future they already have in their life right now, right here. So pockets
yeah,
of future or the desirable states. This you can only create and have an idea of the future if you already have something like a seed elsewhere in your whatever. So for example, in an organization, the organization says, oh, we want to have better inclusion. They can only say, of course they have an idea of what worse inclusion means, but also they need to have the polarity. They have to have at least one understanding in one situation, one experience with a better inclusion, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to translate that, they wouldn't be able to communicate that. And that is the same with an entrepreneur creating an impactful business or an investor. They do have to have an idea and already did it in some ways, how it could be differently. And so I'm helping them to really create that. So again, it's not only what you have right now, right here, you also need to have the longer vision and the longer ideas of that. And then we're coming back the way there. It can either be extractive or it can be, in my terms, you call it differently, it can be regenerative. It means in service to life. And that is a decision away.
yes, thank you. Voir grand comment c'est petit. That's like came to my mind now. See the vision, but start small, start
Yes.
here, start now. So
Yeah.
it's kind of the French know it's already a few. uh, okay. Uh, for me, so I would like to come back to this element about behavior. And now in the economy, we have market manipulators, and then we could have them. We have some of them. We have market manipulators. That is a bad behavior, so unethical behavior. So and then we have consumer behavior. So and because we are we are about 8 billion people on this planet. This planet belongs to all of us. So some people use extractive behaviors. Some have no option. And while we are speaking about bringing the humanity in the economy, we should consider both of them. How can we, for example, make consumer behavior gets better because a lot of products are consumed today in the free market. The free market is not functioning that good. There are many flaws. I would like to go to later on that. And we have a free market. This concept of free markets, we have tested it, but it's not functioning in that good. Otherwise, and then we have bad consumer behavior. For example, people are not taking care of their health. They're eating too much carbohydrates. They are getting fat. They drink too much soft drinks, and then they get sick. And then because you are not living in an island, each individual is embedded in a society. So this individual consumes bad, so we will have a societal impact. We kind of see that in the United States, for example, they have one, I think it's past the military spending, but so the social and healthcare systems over more. They are spending more on that than on the military. So it's kind of is the cause of it is consumer behavior. Do you have any ideas that how can we improve consumer behavior? I'll tell you why I'm asking this question because I'm networking with the people from the agriculture sector. They many call them regenerative agriculture. So, and my question is with them always was, how could we? Because when you uh, plant biologically friendly, it's gonna cost you much. It's gonna cost much time. You need much land. So it is not easy like using pesticides, herbicides, and other things. So it's gonna cost much human investment and capital investment. So the market needs to reward these individuals. And how can my question was always how can we make the market aware of the of the benefits of good quality food can you please comment on that? So how can we make the market aware of good quality food, the impacts on health, and in relation to consumer behavior?
Mm. Ooh, it's a very, very, very deep and
Yes.
complex question you ask.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to
Okay,
it. Yeah.
let me try to work through that field you opened there. Let's talk about regenerative agriculture first. It is a practice that is, of course, again here too. How can we serve life? How can we plant and build agriculture, which is more than plants, is also about animals
It's
and not only cattle
probiotic.
and yes,
Yeah.
and so. But we are creating in a way that is more in a cyclic way, for example, in a seasonal way, and also building up the health of soil, for example, and not extracting of what you just said. And the costs you mentioned, again, I'm not an expert in that. I am a descendant of farmers and shepherds, and I grew up on a
Yeah.
farm for the first 4.5 years. And as I always say, before I could even walk, I was on eye level with the earthworm. However, and I do have a good understanding still of that because of my family. However, I would not consider myself as an expert in that. So the cost you mentioned, and that's also, and it doesn't matter if you go in agriculture, it's also in any way of business, it's actually the cost of transition. And it's not like that the regenerative agriculture would cost more, because we also know that you do need less water to irrigate the soil to keep it
Yeah.
moist
Yeah.
because of a different way of planting. We also need you need no chemicals, which is
Yeah.
also money you can save because you plant differently. You plant different plants. They help each other, or you would put just like just give with this example. So there are different ways, and also you need then less electricity for certain things
Yes.
and so
Yes.
on. So
Yeah.
really you save money. But what really costs money for the beginning is the transitional phase. And that is what we have in businesses too. When they go through a transformation, let's say an organizational transformation, it does need more money. It does increase the cost. It's not that it's better at the first phase. And why is that the case? Because in evolution and development, there is no such thing that you end the situation you want to leave and then the new one is already there. that would be cause and effect, kind of, you know, like
Yeah.
beads on a string. That is not how evolution works. It is the old is fading out and the new is fading in. So, and then
Yes.
at some point you have both worlds. This, you know, you have still the old and you have already the new. And this is the moment of highly overwhelming. And this is what we actually witness in many economies right now worldwide and in many societies. The old does not work anymore and the new has not established.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't really have a good idea of what the new could really be, but we are in the transitional zone. So we're just tired, we are worn out, we are, you know, have all the conversations we need, and it's just yucky, it's annoying. We have the feeling everything is just crumbling. So that is what really is what the cause creates. And then after that, it's getting better. You feel more rejuvenated, you feel more alive, you have more energy, you have a better capacity for creating and all that. And the company all of a sudden is more innovative, brings new products, new services. But before that happens, you have to go through this phase. So that I want to be said. Now, back to your question, how can we change that? And I cannot really say with food. I want to put and highlight that with, and I want to highlight the idea of, let's say, renewable energies and climate change. To address climate change with renewable energies only is just a little bit of what is needed to really address this idea of climate change, or as you said, consumer behavior. For
Yeah.
the climate change, you do need a different consumer behavior, and you also need a different economic system, which needs less electricity, which causes not all the externalities we just talked about and all that. And for that this is possible, creating those different systems of consumer behavior, of different businesses, they are not extractive but beneficial for life and beneficial for positive climate. We
Yeah.
need to build social capacity. And this is what we know right now. And putting effort in building the social capacity, that is something that was neglected for decades. A lot of initiatives do that,
Well,
but it's not in the ways of being orchestrated or being really highlighted or even being funded in a good way. Because they're always like, they're so social. They're only social initiatives, you know, they will just manage. Now, even a social initiative needs a lot of funding because you have to build up infrastructure for communication. You have to have access to communicational tools. You have to have access to communicational tools that make it possible for you to communicate, let's say, with other parts in the world. And just by that, and then I finish here. My friend Joy is in Kenya, and a Kenyan person does not make as much money as a German employee does in a month, right? And yet, if she wants to communicate with the Western world in the ways of having a profound and good exchange in ideas and concept and approaches that both could learn, she has to go and use platforms that the Western world uses, or the Western world has to use platforms that she would use, that she could afford. The situation is that to be able to communicate with the Western world, she has to get the license for the same price. We're talking with a video conferencing system here today, and she would pay the same that I pay every year. So, but for her, it's so much more she has to actually bring in to make it happen. So it means she either tries to really make it happen, or she cannot communicate on this platform with other people. So, and that is something, you know, we really, really have to take in consideration when we think about changing consumer behavior. It's not only locally, it's also in a global effect. How can we create access and make it more equitable?
That's great. So you have mentioned a lot of things that I can comment on. Yeah, but I like it. I like the conversation of today. We are touching on a lot of different angles. Yeah, I would like to say one thing about you. You mentioned the social part you are talking about. We need to increase cooperation. Uh, can I understand this that way? More cooperation within an enterprise, between farmers, between individuals, between groups, between societies is beneficial. And I do have very good news as a book came to the world a few years ago. It's from Mr. Jeremy Griffiths. The name of the title of the book is Freedom, the End of the Human Condition. And in it, he is a biologist from Australia, and he kind of go to the treats the human being. He goes to the origin of us human beings, and his conclusion is very interesting, very relevant to our conversation. Is that we are our original instincts are cooperative, nurturing, and loving. That's our original instincts, not competitive, aggressive. These are symptoms of a psychological problem, of a psychosis. He goes in the book in details. I will send you the name of it. Uh, I'd like to comment on what you have said before, also about the climate change. Yes, climate change is a big problem, but we should be focused, be really, really to faire attention, to to be aware that we could descend into very dark ages if we miss that out. Because the climate change, there is many approaches to it. There is the open approach that I personally take because I'm familiar with the topic since many years. I'm on it since 2015. That's kind of one of the topics that I engage with the most. And there is an option to take climate change as an opening to deal with the real problem. The real problem is environmental destruction, which is includes mangroves, coastal mangroves. They are drained, most of them. It's not due to the climate, it's due to human behavior. Radical urbanization, especially on the deltas of the rivers on the coast, the points between when the river meets the ocean or or the sea. And you have many dozens of problems, environmental problems. So climate change is just a symptom. And if we see that as the real problem, not just the system, we want to treat the system and not address the root causes, we're gonna end up, we're gonna solve nothing. For example, renewable energy is good, but we cannot power industry nation with it. For example, I'm a product of the German industrial base, and I worked in the most modern power plant in Germany, so I'm very familiar about the situation. I was once near mentioned only once in the Max Planck Institute, Plasma Institute, and why I'm mentioning that, they have explained to us nuclear fusion because they are doing the testing by there in near München. It's 10 kilometer outside München, and it's very promising, nuclear fusion. So nuclear energy is the most cleanest clean energy we have, but we kind of our societies kind of associate this with the bombs and with the hydrogen bomb and stuff. So nuclear as to produce energy to power an industrial nation state or an industrial base or multiple nations, uh, we need investment there instead of subventions for something that we know it's because, for example, the German states does a lot of subventions in many areas, but we are not very sure because when we do subventions, we say this we help these products, but we don't have the rest. But who are assessing the situation? What are their competence? I do think that there is a lot of incompetence worldwide in many in enterprises and societies, in governments. It's a phenomenon. And for example, I do suggest personally that we need massive investment in the research the innovation. That's not only my ideas, also from the Copenhagen consensus. They are working with several Nobel Prize laureates in the economy, and they also came to the same conclusion. We need to invest massively in new ideas and innovation. And I personally think that solar and wind, I'm a fan of them, but the way we do subventions, because why I'm saying that, because every time I say to someone I am a German engineer, they say, "Oh, Germany, solar power plants." I say, "Oh, you have no idea. The topic is very big." So I do think an subvention to because one engineer told me once, and I think it's good. I don't know how to say that in English. Subventionen sind Belohnung für das Versagen. So they are reward for not being efficient or something like
Others
that. Yeah.
for others people failures. Yes.
Yeah.
Subventions
Something.
are the reward for other people failures. Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of doing these subventions, let's take the same money. I'm not talking about a major thing. Just this money, give it to students, to PhD students, give it to researchers, and to enterprises doing research, to institutions doing research. Yeah. I talked a lot. Tell me, what do you think about my idea?
Um, I'm not an energy expert, so I cannot
Yeah.
really say something about this. But I want to come back the idea of cooperation and innovation.
Yeah.
And what I see is, of course, there's always the cry for more investments in research and science and all of that, and it's needed, definitely.
Yeah.
And create the next technological innovation. And what we forget in all about this is we do need social innovation too. And when you look at the world and see what's going on in many states, in what is boiling and cooking there, sometimes underneath the surface, sometimes it's breaking through, in civil war like situations, just speaking about Kenya recently. And then it brings me really to the point that all that we think about innovation is really desperately needed, that we redefine what actually innovation is, and that we also invest in structures, infrastructures, in spaces. They foster social innovation, they foster communication, they foster cooperation in the ways.
Yeah.
You mentioned cooperation and you also mentioned competition. And when we look at both words and both kind of, let's say, energies, then not in the way of judgment, it's just like, what is it actually they're trying to solve? They're trying to solve a problem, both. It's just in a different approach. The cooperation tries to solve the problem in let's work together. And the competition tries to solve the problem and let's try to outcompete and be the better. And
Yeah.
let's be the winner, the Highlander of all of that. So just to speak in those ways, but they do that. And what both try to secure, when you really look back in the development of and the evolution of humanity, they are trying to secure the survival of the tribe, the survival of the species in a certain situation. And again, it is just the decision away if you want to do it this way or if you want to do it that way. And we do know also from research exactly what you said, that humans are absolutely wired for cooperation.
Yes.
And to do that in the ways and really foster that, it does need different spaces. And that, for example, also led me to found What Matters, and which is the initiative that brings together global impact creators from technology, capital, and social and humanities to create those spaces and weave those gaps. They're there to build capacity for regenerative economy and also create better conditions for invention. And in the ways I see it is like economical, ecological, and social inventions that is really desperately needed in all of that working together. So yeah, so that just came to my mind when you talked
Yeah,
about invention, cooperation, and
that's
competition.
that's great. When I highly recommend you read the book from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the godfather of flow psychology. He wrote a book. I have it here, and I read this and reread this. I do not read much books, but I read the same book over and over again. So the book names a psychology of the third millennium, the evolving self. So it's so great, that book. And while you were talking about solution, about innovation, and many sentences in the book came to my mind. There is a lot of not everyone can read this book because it's intensive. It's too very heavy book. So, but someone like you, if you read it, you can take ideas and work because we don't need, like we have said before, we do not need to start from zero. There are there are other people who have already made the work. Let's take their work and move with this further. So Mihaly is one to. I'm not a social person. Yes, I'm highly technical. So and a little bit about the environment, but not too much. Much more. My brain is in technicalities. And yes, it's the
You
time.
know, but I do see a sweet spot here between your perspective from engineering and mine from the social part, and it is what conditions are needed to build, right? So
Yes,
in your ways, like build housing and build houses and cities and how you call it, and in my ways is
settlements.
it, yes, and settlements, and in my way it is what conditions are needed to build the capacity for regenerative economy, the capacity for social interactions, the capacity for regenerative businesses. And that is a total different approach. That is not that you really look for the output, you really look for what is needed to create this impact. And that for today, for me, was a very beautiful discovery. So really, thank you
Nice.
for
Really
for
like it.
inviting me.
I have another question, and it's kind of relates to that one also, to what we are talking about. It's the question of free markets and planned planned markets. So for I'm not at the global level, of course, I'm 100% against any planned economy. So there's no discussion in that. But when we talk small scale, sometimes planned economy, even internal in big companies, for example, internal. Can you tell us a little bit about it? And before you do, I'm highly interested in creating villages. My main project is about creating settlements of the third millennium, and villages, small villages of a couple thousand individuals. I do think that these are the future, because in my personal opinion, I do see that radical urbanization is the most destructive environmental impact from anything, even much higher than CO2 or fossil fuel burn and so on. Radical urbanization is so big of a problem. I see no one talking about it, but I know why. I took time to do my homework, so I know exactly why and how. And I came to the conclusion that we need to build villages everywhere on the land. So in order to create this environment where children can grow, because what I say that, wrote that in a poem last time. I say we want instinctively moral human beings. So, to create, we need for that we need an environment, a socio-cultural environment, an economical framework for that. And for me, is village creating like like 1,000, 2,000 individual within a village, and can you tell us a bit about free market and planned economy? And could
Mm.
it be planned economy? Could this be suitable for a small village?
Mm. As you know, I was born in East Germany, so I do know both economic systems like the
Yeah,
planned economy and also what you refer to as the free economy. And also, and that's why I really dare to say that I haven't found any company yet who doesn't have an at least one aspect of planned. So one of the indicators of planned economy that is centralized. You know, the
yeah,
planning is centralized, and the resources are also kind of access to resources are limited to a certain group of people, and they are also um, like shared. You know, it's in the ways of you get this share, you get that share. So when you look at the companies, it's pretty much that we have a yearly forecast, we have long-term plans, and also financial plans. We have a centralized um, educational program for the employees, for example.
yeah,
We also have a centralized career plan for the employees. So you know what? I do think those are all the indicators of a planned economy. So, and that can be a good thing and it cannot be a good thing. It depends on the organization and it depends on the environment and also the situation of the economy, the situation of the society. So I cannot really say is it good or bad for that just per
yeah,
se. But for your example, what you said is you want to create those settlements, and then you create that in a beautiful housing, and also thinking of the social aspects of they should have communication, everything. And at the point, it is needed that they have to have the ability and the opportunity to make a living.
yes,
And this is where it comes and gets interesting, because then you bring in the idea of how can we create an economy here? And then again, it's the question, what kind of economy do we want? Do we want to have an extractive one, or do we want to have an economy that is serving our community because we want to have, you know, certain way of future we want to see here, or not? So those are the things. But however, before you start any any economy, but also a community, you do need to have a certain access to water. You need a well,
yeah,
at least.
yeah,
You need access to water. You need to have the ability to clean it if it's not clean yet. You
yeah,
know, that's a point. And you do have to have access to have. You do need access to energy.
yeah,
Now we have to think in energy in a broader perspective here. Probably, if you go more in rural areas, which does not necessarily mean, you know, plug into the next power plant you have set up there
yeah,
in solar panels or hydropower
yeah,
or something. They can also be for starting in wood, for example, or dung. You know, it's just whatever is there in the ways. However, this is something that can also be considered because we do have the knowledge and the experience from other countries and other people that it might not be in the long term a good idea and just relying on burning dung or burning turf or something. You know, there
yeah,
might be an idea, how can we use solar energy? How can we set
yes,
this up? Then we need agriculture because people have to eat. You
mhm,
know, and then we already at this point we already established an economy because we trade workforce for food, for example.
yeah,
And that already is exactly what it is. If that is planned, it could be helpful for the beginning, not in the free market, really like in a community and network oriented and a human-centered policy, to create human-centered policy, to talk about what are the needs of our community in the ways of food, like, like physically, mentally, educationally, and health-wise, and then of course socially. And if we implement human-centered policies, we would already and really create conditions to foster them. We already create more humanity in the economy just by that.
Yes, I'm gonna explain what I have in mind. Uh, these sorts of villages, I call them the cells of the future, inspired from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. In his book, he takes it from he already took care of the social part, so I rely on his expertise. About water and energy, to all of that, there are solutions, but especially in rural areas. But because the main idea is why I came to that idea, as a protect ensuring the survivability of civilization. And as social units, if we decentralize many villages, and each village you have we have knowledge, we have books, we have a small data center, we have energy not dependent on the grid. So if the grid goes off, the whole country uh, is in a catastrophe mode. For example, in most countries actually are like this, because we have centralized the grid, and with AI coming and cyber attacks, it's gonna be easy for someone using a powerful AI tool to shut the energy system and run havoc on a country or multiple countries simultaneously. So as a reaction to many things going on worldwide, I decided, okay, let's reduce it to villages, because even if something happened, if we have millions and millions of those villages, so even if an asteroid impact hits, or a solar wave came through, so we will have survivors. They will not start from scratch. That's the main idea behind it, that has developed. So the technical problems are not the real issues. The big problems are in the philosophy around this. I'm kind of thinking also about a regenerative combination of regenerative agriculture, and about the sociological parts, because it's a small. You cannot do capitalism there, or competition. It's not gonna work, because after a year or two, everyone gonna know everyone else. So it's a kind of good idea to think about a planned economy, internal planned economy, when it comes to trading between individuals within the village. So, for example, you cannot sell food in a way that you sell food in the city, for example, because you need to treat everybody like the same, because it's a village. It's kind of like a family, you know?
Yes. I mean, it's a very complex thing when people come together. As the saying goes, you can expect miracles and you can also expect complexity in certain ways.
Yes,
So,
yes, for
and
sure.
that's for sure. And what is really necessary is this cultural sensitivity you're speaking about. You have to treat everyone the same. And yet the question is, can you even do that? Can you really do that? Can you, for example, you have a tomato farmer who plants tomatoes and the crop is just shitty because of certain weather conditions, and the person doesn't make as much as it was, for example, cannot really bring much to the market. So and then it's really the question, what actually are the ethical principles of this community? What is the culture? What is the value this
Yeah.
community has? The settlement you were mentioning, is it that we want to feed all mouths, And what is enough then? When do we say it's like, for example, this tomato farmer, would we just say, no matter, don't worry, you get the food? Or do we expect something in return? And that is when it gets really interesting. That is when it
Yes.
gets in the nitty-gritties, and this is when we already implement. And that's when we really implement exclusion or inclusion, and when we implement equity, or really, just another challenging structure. And what I also learned with my research on how to build regenerative economies is going with the needs of the community in the given environment. It's not like, okay, taking one blueprint or creating a blueprint and taking that and putting that and throwing that on each other community, because what works for one village and settlement does not necessarily has to work for the other, because there are
Yes. Yeah.
different people in there. Because then you also need to go in that, okay, you need to have like certain genders, certain ages, certain representatives of education and everything. So it really gets very complex. And but again, I am not, it's not my expertise. I'm just like harvesting here a little bit from my social worker
Yeah.
perspective I used to have, and still carry that in my heart. So I think it's really what it needs for those establishments is, especially for those spaces for emergence, and always asking the question, what conditions do we have to need? What capacity do we have to build to make this step toward the desired future happening? And that is a different approach. And that would not be a planned economy or a planned approach. It would be a very human-centered approach. And actually, that's what communities and tribes used to do,
Yes. Yeah.
millennials ago.
So it's kind of we have to learn from ancient tribes, relearn what
I
we
think
have
more
and learn.
relearn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nicole, thank you very much for this
Mhm.
very rich conversation, discussion, what we call it. And I'm glad you came to on my podcast. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I am a big fan of your work and the vision you hold, and it was really a blast. I learned a lot today too. So really thank you for also giving me the opportunity to reflect on your magnificent questions and your perspectives. And yeah, as I said, I really like the idea that we try to build better conditions for a good future. So thank you so much.